welcome to another episode of Home Tech. As usual, I'm joined on this very special night by Jason Griffin, because I think Jason may have had some other plans. Jason, what's going on, man?
Yeah, I'm doing a little multitasking here. I was kind of laughing to myself because I think I remember having this exact conversation a year ago and saying how this proves my dedication to home tech, that I'm sitting here recording with you this evening, and it's the opening night of NFL football. And it's crazy how quick a year goes by, I guess.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, I'm glad to have you here. And while you have one eye on the game there, we can talk a little bit about. I don't know. There wasn't much news this week, so I think it's going to be a quick show, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we got a few stories. Obviously, there was a ton of news on the Apple event, but
that's what I was getting at.
Yeah. Well, yeah. In all seriousness, though, only so much that really applied directly to home technology, right? There was obviously a new iPhone, new iPad, new Apple TV. But we'll get into that, and we'll give some of our thoughts on that, and then of course some of our thoughts on what we didn't see, namely, more prominent news on the HomeKit front.
Yep, absolutely. So I guess let's just go ahead and dive into a couple of the news stories we thought were interesting this week. First up is this protocol, this industry standard called KNX, and they announced this last couple of weeks that they were going to push their efforts from Europe into the U.S. Now, KNX is the dominant home automation standard in Europe and through the Middle East, I think, too. It seems like this. I don't have very much experience with it. I've heard of it. I know it exists, and I've talked to a couple of people who use it and say it works well over in the UK. But I don't know what to think about this. I think to me they're a little bit too late to the game, huh?
Yeah, it kind of seems like that to me. But I guess I'm with you in terms of I'm kind of speaking from a position of inexperience or ignorance. Even I'd say I'm just not all that familiar with KNX. I think one time I can remember a couple years ago, I was managing a project for a builder, and he had another client who was building a home in LA who came from overseas, and the builder, he had asked the builder, who in turn asked me specifically about KNX, and I'd only heard of it in passing prior to that. And I actually that evening I'd spent a few minutes just kind of reading about it, didn't spend a ton of time on it. I know it's big overseas, and that's why this story caught my eye. It looks like they're making a concerted effort to push into the U.S. market, and I can certainly understand why they would want to do that. I'm just curious, what's taken so long, I guess. What people overseas seem to swear by it. It seems to have a good reputation, and I'm just wondering, what's so great about KNX? Is this the real deal? Do they really have a chance at making a big penetration or a big push into the U.S. market? And I'd be curious if anybody listening had any insights on that they'd want to share with us.
Yeah, we're mostly used to hearing the words start with the letter Z, Z-Wave and Zigbee. And like this one comes along and has been around since 1999, it looks like. So it's gone through its development cycle. It looks like, I mean, there are a ton of companies that are behind this thing, but most of them they're very European dominant. So it would be nice to hear from somebody. Maybe if you want to reach out to us on the hub, if you're part of the Slack group, you can go ahead and reach to us there, or on Twitter, you can reach us at HomeTech Podcast.
We wanted to throw that out because we know we've got a great amount of support from a Twitter community that we actually haven't mentioned in a while here, and that's the live install community. And I know a lot of those guys operate overseas where KNX is very prominent. So we're talking specifically to you guys over there. If you've got direct experience with KNX, we'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And like I said, whether or not this is the real deal, and if it really stands a chance in your opinion of penetrating the U.S. market.
Yeah, well, speaking of communication protocols, this week, Lutron announced or pushed out or did something. I've never seen this thing, but they have a Zigbee keypad now.
Yeah, this was like a kind of a sleeper story. We got to credit a good friend of the show, Richard Gunther, who is a regular listener, and I'm sure he's listening now and will appreciate the recognition there. Richard hosts a show called Home On, which is another great home technology podcast. And Seth, I think you said you came across this story through Richard, and I actually hadn't heard of it either until you had posted the link up on our board here where we keep those stories. And I think it's another smart move by Lutron. They really, I feel like we talk about it all the time. They're just making a lot of smart moves in the smart home space right now, and they've maintained a very profitable high-end line of custom install shading and lighting components, but they've also managed to kind of branch into some of the more down market solutions, and this I think is a perfect example of that.
Yeah, this is very smart on their part. Now this is based, it looks like, on the Pico remote form factor. I mean, it looks identical to the 4-button Pico remote that they have. And now this little remote, you can walk around with it in your hand, and it's got a button for light on, light off, and then raise and lower on it, right? But the Pico remotes, there's also all sorts of little like tabletop pedestals you can mount them on, and there's there's even an adapter kit that you can actually put either over the top, take out the light switch, put the wires together or something, and then put it like over the top of that. So you can actually put it, or you can just stick it on a wall. Like you can just take it. It's got like a sticky tape on it.
That's the beauty of it. Is these things? I guess if anyone's not familiar, we should probably mention that the Pico remote, which is the same form factor that this Zigbee remote takes. Essentially, it's just a small, like about the size of a single gang Decora, and super lightweight, and you can just basically, it's got a battery in it, and just stick it on the wall wherever you need some tactile control. And I think when the Picos first came out, I thought it was a brilliant little product and really great for just those little retrofit situations, or even people who live in apartments or don't own and don't want to do anything with replacing outlets or anything along those lines. You could potentially put something like this in. This one in particular looks like it is currently supporting Cree connected bulbs and GE Link. And according to what I'm reading here from Richard's site, it looks like that's it for now, at least. But really just a nice little product, a simple solution. And for somebody who just needs a little bit of control and doesn't want to, dive into maybe a more robust or full-blown lighting control system, this is a great little product.
Yeah, it also says it does the Hue and Hulux bulbs as well. So it's
right.
Yeah, it's pretty much anything that is running the Zigbee standard. I guess it looks like it'll integrate with them and pair up nicely, which is cool. This is kind of what you in particular and I have been preaching about. Like one of the little Lutron video that they have, it kind of pokes fun at having to find your phone, turn it on, and then push, the app button, wait for it to load, and then tap the light you want, and then turn it on. And this, you just walk up to it, press the button, the light's turned on. That's what we expect. That's how this whole system should work. And this is a great little. I mean, I think they start at $30 is what it said, $29.97 at Home Depot. So yeah, I mean that's a great little way to kind of, I would say, de-geek some of your smart light bulbs.
Yeah, I think there's just no getting around the importance of having that physical tactile control. And we'll definitely have to include a link to that video in the show notes. Lutron put together a little, looks like a promo video, kind of a commercial of sorts, I guess you would say. And that's one of the themes they hit on in there is they show a little graphic of somebody using this remote to turn on the lights versus, pulling out your phone and sliding it open. And, I think that there's always a place for app-based control of lighting, but you're never going to get away from that importance in the need for just a nice tactile control. And I think this is a nice, easy, cheap way to add that to your system if that's something that you are in need of.
Yeah. I mean, you could get pretty advanced with this, but it means that somebody coming to your house and who doesn't have your phone paired up with your Hue lights can actually operate your lights. They can just walk in, turn the lights on and off. So the babysitter can actually use your house rather than having to give her access to everything. So yeah, it's a really, really cool thing. And it's good that Lutron's jumping on board because it looks like there is a pretty large market out there, a growing market of devices of homes that actually have smart technology. We ran across this study on CE Pro that 28% of U.S. houses have a smart home device, which is crazy to think about.
Yeah, you were mentioning this to me, and my initial reaction, I've seen and heard of studies like this before where they throw out these very high numbers, and then it turns out that they're counting people who maybe have like a Samsung, quote unquote smart TV, and that qualifies them as owning smart home technology. But my understanding of this, Seth, and you've looked at this story a little bit closer than I have. This one, did it look at it a little bit differently than that, or is it the same kind of thing where we're not really sure what they're qualifying as smart home technology?
It looks like they are counting connected lighting, which we just talked about, thermostats, remote access security, and smart locks. And that's 28% of homes. I guess that's at least having one of those devices. And then that's actually 50% of millennials. So people 18 to 34 have just really come on strong and started adopting this technology. What I think is interesting in those things that we just listed, so lighting, thermostats, security, smart locks, those are not AV devices. Those aren't.
Yep, very true.
Those are your standard things that go into your house, and you don't really have to interact with them all that much. Maybe when you're coming in the door or leaving or turning off the lights at night. Those are what people are really wanting. And what I found, this number in here is just crazy. 91% of those who currently own smart home products would recommend the technology. Holy cow. That is crazy high.
Yeah, that is a high number.
I would not have expected that. I mean, being in the industry that I'm in.
Especially, knowing, the phone calls that we get on a daily or weekly basis from a lot of our clients, which is, it just the nature of the beast. And we put in some pretty complicated systems, and just like anything technology related, there are hiccups. And when you've been in the business doing it as long as people like you and me have, you've just built up a long list of legacy clients that need ongoing support. And so we tend to start thinking about things from a different perspective. And so it's great to kind of step back from your own perspective. And when publications like CE Pro can kind of go out and do these surveys, it's nice to, get a different view on things.
Yeah. I have another theory. Maybe you and I are only hearing from that 9%.
Yeah.
Everybody else is minority.
Happy. That is quite possible that it's skewing a little bit. I like that.
Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and think of it that way. Glass 9% full.
I'm going to tell myself that anyways.
Yeah. So a couple of other cool things in here. 87% says technology makes their lives easier. I would totally agree with that. It being in my house as well, just walk in, disarm the security system, and the lights kick on. Yep. All that like small little automation things definitely make your life easier. And parents are most likely to people with children. 68% of those want to have something smart in their home. Mm-hmm. So these are big numbers. These are huge numbers. Dealers who are listening need to keep those numbers in mind, those particular systems in mind, because this means this is what your customers want. These are what the vast majority is what your customers want. And if you go to them trying to sell them speakers, you might lose the sale. You got to think about this. This is what these types of surveys are showing you the trends. And definitely speakers and AV isn't going to get you very far, very much longer. Is what I'm taking away from this.
Or at least leading with it, right?
It comes in later. It comes in as a bonus. But this is when people think of smart homes, they're thinking of lighting, security, smart door locks, and thermostats. They're not thinking of really cool automation stuff that you and I can do, where we press one button, we turn on 30 devices to kick on a TV, that's awesome, but that's not what people are thinking about when they think of a smart home. Yeah,
it's very true. Very true. Interesting article, and we will definitely post that up in the show notes. I think from here, Seth, it's probably time we give Apple their due.
Apple, little company in Cupertino. I think you're talking about.
That would be them. Yep.
So they came out with a couple products. I was actually, surprised. I was actually surprised of the width of this announcement. That's probably not the right word, but holy cow! Like the stuff they came out with was just incredible, and I think you and I probably are disappointed that HomeKit didn't get a nod or at least a wink with the announcement of the new Apple TV. But I can't blame them for not having any time to talk about it with all the other stuff they announced.
Yeah, it's very true. As bummed as I am that HomeKit just kind of continues to hang out in the background, and I think it's so intriguing for reasons that we've talked about, a million times on the show. I get it, I guess, and I agree with you completely. This was an impressive event from where I sit. They released quite a few new products, and a number of these are pretty impressive. The iPad Pro, I think we could start there. Looks like a pretty neat device. Certainly not cheap. Not something that I'll personally be running out and buying right away, mainly because of that, and also because I've got an iPad that works perfectly well for me. But this is a pretty impressive looking machine.
Yeah, it's huge. So the screen on it is bigger than my laptop screen by 2 inches almost. This thing is massive. It's heavy. But as the name implies, I think it's going to be perfect for professionals who actually need something that large. When I saw it, I thought instantly, I want to use that for Plan Grid. Like, I don't know if you've used that app, but holy cow, you load your plans into it, you do your red lines on it, you hit upload, it goes out to the whole team. That type of device, that would be perfect for something like that. And Apple certainly thinks that this form is the next generation of computers. I mean, they were showing off. Heck, Microsoft was the first demo.
Yeah, which was interesting.
Crazy. Yeah. It's like, is this reality? Like, where am I? What's going on here? This is so weird. So yeah, Microsoft was the first demo talking about Office and running Word and Excel side by side on this giant screen tablet, and that's really cool. Like you can actually really get some work done. I don't think the form factor is for me. I kind of like having the iPad, but definitely when I'm out in the field, I don't know. This might be the right device. I really want the what they call the pencil. So Apple invented the pencil the last couple of days. That device looks pretty cool. I think it's kind of pricey for $100, but I guess what that Apple makes it isn't pricey. It look, maybe third-party stuff will kind of catch up and be a lower price in the future, but I think for what it is, it's a great little thing too for people who actually need it. And it may not be me, it may not be everybody, but like digital artists, that's a perfect thing for them. And having that iPad Pro where they can like draw. You see those videos where they're like drawing, and it's like the when they put the pencil sideways, it makes the line wider. Like, holy cow, that's incredible.
Yeah, it was an impressive video, and those videos always make it look so easy, right? And I was just envisioning myself trying to draw like that, and I'm sure it
stick figures
wouldn't come out nearly that pretty. But yeah, the first main thing that jumped to my mind was kind of the same thing you were talking about, sort of redlining drawings or marking up floor plans, and I think using that Apple Pencil as a tool to do some of that, and maybe get in there and make some finer notes, or who knows, do little sketches of a builder's calling and saying, hey, what do we need for this TV pocket or whatever. Being able to do some of those things on this sort of bigger screen with the pencil, I think would be a really nice working environment. Like I said, it not something I'm going to rush out and buy, and I'm pretty content with my current iPad and just using, still to me, like a I guess, quote unquote, traditional laptop, like a MacBook Pro, is something that I don't see myself moving away from anytime soon. But you're right. Apple seems to be placing their bets on this kind of being the future of computing.
Yeah, one of the things I thought was interesting was how much technology they packed into this thing. One thing I really want to hear are the speakers. Honestly, like the iPad, I thought had a decent, okay sounding speaker. It kind of surprises you when you hear it played. It's like, okay, that's more than I thought it was going to be. But then this has got 4 speakers in it. So I don't know. This could be fun to actually use as a monitor or whatever, or watch a movie on. I don't know. Definitely not as portable as an iPad, but all this technology that you see shoved into these, pro devices or the top of the line flagship devices that Apple makes eventually will make it down into, the regular iPads, which would be really cool, I think. People have been kind of, talking about how Steve Jobs famously said, if you see a stylus, then we failed or something like that. But that's we was talking about the phone. Like, I don't think you need a stylus on a phone.
I read and I can't remember where the article was, but I read an article talking about that, and a lot of people were coming out and kind of getting on Apple right away about how Steve Jobs had said in the past that, a stylus, he had made sort of disparaging comments about that and who wants a stylus. But like you said, that was a very, very different time. He was talking about an
years
iPhone.
Ago,
yeah. He wasn't talking about, an iPad Pro with his big screen, and very, very different. So I think that's definitely something that can be taken out of context. And I've seen that story kind of making the rounds as far as, Apple, I thought they were never going to do a stylus, but it's a not an accurate comparison in my opinion.
Yeah, there's a market for this stuff. Apple would not have put this much effort into making a product and announcing it in this way if there wasn't a market that they thought this stuff would sell into. And they're obviously proven in the past that they have the resources to identify and put product into the hands of people who want it. So I want one of these things. I don't know. I mean, it's like $1,000 to get it with the Wi-Fi or not the Wi-Fi, the LTE built into it.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think I'm due for a computer upgrade in between now and then. But holy cow, this would make a beautiful touchscreen tablet. It would make a great sales presentation machine too. So that's what I have in my mind, and we'll see what happens. Maybe I'll get one of these days.
Yeah, definitely. I did. The last thought I wanted to just kind of reiterate on that I thought was interesting is that this thing clearly from just purely like a hardware form factor perspective looks like a shot at Microsoft, who's got the Surface, and that's why I was surprised, like everyone. Obviously Apple did that on purpose and wanted us to be surprised by the fact that they actually brought somebody up from Microsoft to talk about Office for iPad, and just thought that was interesting. A little interesting twist at the event. Certainly not something that we expected to see, and I'd be curious to know from anybody who's used the Surface and maybe likes it. I know there's a lot of people out there who use them and seem to like them, but be curious to know kind of how this is going to affect Microsoft's, I guess, market share when it comes to this particular form factor. That's almost like I would say a hybrid almost between a tablet and a laptop.
Yeah. People who have the Surface say they love them, and I just don't. There's not that many of them, so it's just one of those things. I don't know. Okay, we'll see what happens. It seems like Apple has a leg up with the amount of people that they have buying iPads, but I think people with iPad Pros are going to be kind of a tiny subset of that. I mean, this thing is huge. Seeing normal people carry it around is going to be kind of awkward. And I think it's just going to have a niche market that it serves very, very well. And we'll see what happens. I mean, if you were buying a computer, like your first computer today, and you didn't really have to do anything but surf the internet and check email, that's where I would point people. Like, just go get that. That's going to serve 99% of the people out there.
But does it take selfies?
I think it does. Did you see that? I mean, one of the minor things they had was the phone that they released. It was kind of their talk update. So there's the Tick, which is the major update, and the talk. It's kind of the Intel speak. This is the 6S line that's come out. They invented it, or they worked up an entire chip to actually overdrive the screen so it would make a flash, so you could take selfies with a flash.
Yeah,
think about that. They invented a chip to do that, and they made
the selfie chip.
Exactly. How insane is that? That's how much money this company has.
Yeah.
Let's head on over to the Apple TV, because I know we got a lot more to talk about there than phones and big touchscreens.
Yeah. We won't spend any time really on the iPhone 6s. Looks kind of interesting. We can maybe touch on that in a minute, but yeah, let's get to the Apple TV, because I think that's the one, certainly the one that was the most interesting to me, and probably the one that was the most interesting to most people who listen to Home Tech. And I have to say, overall, I was a little underwhelmed, and I think the main reason for that is the two primary things that I was kind of hoping to see. Number one actually is not HomeKit, but number one, the thing that I was really hoping for was to see some sort of like packaged content offering from Apple. We've heard a lot of rumors about they're going to come out with, sort of a la carte channel pricing to compete with traditional cable providers. And it sounds to me, from everything I've read, like they're just running into a lot of issues. That's a very entrenched business model. And it sounds to me like, maybe that's just had to go on the back burner for now. And so we didn't hear anything about that with the Apple TV. And then again, we didn't hear anything about HomeKit. And you and I have been kind of texting about that and chatting about it a little. And I think you have some thoughts on that we can get into. But I was a little bit disappointed overall that HomeKit didn't get any love again. And I was particularly disappointed that we didn't see any sort of thought given to that in terms of the Apple TV and some of the possibilities there with the new TV OS and all of that.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the TV, so Apple announced along with the Apple TV that they would be doing, they would open up portions of the Apple TV for development. And in doing that, they announced TV OS, and they published a bunch of SDK documentation for developers to go and take a look at. And I went over and looked at it, and the first thing I went hunting for was to see if they brought over HomeKit into this TV OS, and they didn't. So the whole API for HomeKit isn't built into the TV, the Apple TV. But that's not the end of the world, because as we know, in iOS 9, the HomeKit doesn't even need a hub. I suppose you'd still be able to set up, according to the documentation we saw a long time ago, you can set up the Apple TV to kind of forward the signals and act as a hub, but the hub is iCloud. It's not going to be your Apple TV. And I think that's just an interesting paradigm that we're going to have to get used to. There's no reason for them to have ported over and brought HomeKit over to the Apple TV, because unless you need to control your lights from your TV screen, there's not really a compelling use case for that. And maybe there will be one day. This is the first generation of it. But right now, there's really no reason to have that on there. But what I did think was cool, and Mike Wolf actually saw this and posted a little story on it, was the HomeKit website got kind of a new landing page and a complete makeover, which was kind of nice.
Yeah, you did mention that to me, and I have to be honest, I haven't had a chance to take a look at it. I get what you're saying, and I don't know. I just, as the non-developer again, I'm looking at it going, well, if all of my HomeKit stuff has to communicate through iCloud, to me, the first two things that jump to my mind instantly are reliability and lag. Because if everything has to go up, to a server somewhere and then come back down, that to me just seems like not the ideal way to do it. I don't know. Maybe the iPhone is going to communicate directly. It doesn't have to do that.
Yeah, your iPhone talks directly. Like if you're outside of the home, that's when iCloud kicks in. But when you're inside the home, your device has that database on it, and you share that database with other users, and that's what's communicating directly to the devices. So shouldn't be any lag. I can't really see how lag would be brought into that. Now, when you do you are completely right. When you have to go out to the cloud, you're talking about milliseconds of delay, or sometimes hundreds of milliseconds of delay, and that adds up. Traveling across the world to some server, being processed and sent back. That can get to be a long thing.
Yeah, especially if you're doing something like, trying to turn the lights on. Right.
You want it to happen instantly, which is why you need that Lutron Zigbee keypad.
Yeah. So. Well, I guess enough about what Apple TV did not include. Let's talk about what it did. One of the big things that I love so much, and we love here on Home Tech, that they just touted like crazy was the voice control. And, again, to me, it just voice control isn't that, it doesn't get me excited. I just don't see myself talking to my TV as a primary means of controlling it. There are, I guess certain things I could imagine where if my hands were full and I just wanted to kind of be able to yell at the TV and say, hey, pause for a second or something, that'd be kind of cool. But, some of the stuff that they demoed when they're showing it, I forget the lady's name who was up there from the Apple TV team, and she did a few examples. And one that I made a note of is she said, show me that Modern Family episode with Edward Norton. And in a million years, I just can't see myself ever, giving Apple TV that specific of a command, A, and then B, actually expecting it to work. You know what I mean? So just sort of, again, just not something that gets me super excited. Another one she said was skip ahead, 7 minutes. Well, have I ever, I can't think of one situation where I was watching a movie or a TV show and A, I wanted to skip ahead, 7 minutes, and B, that I would have thought to, use my voice as a primary means of doing that. I'm just not sold as on voice control. And it looked to me like a whole lot of resources went into, integrating Siri with the Apple TV. And I'm just curious, how many people are actually going to adopt that beyond, maybe the first couple of days of using it and maybe showing a friend who comes over to say, hey, look at this. This is pretty cool. But once you get into kind of that real world day-to-day use, are people actually going to adopt that? And I'm still skeptical. I have been thinking about this too, because it has interesting implications for integrators, because we typically don't use the remotes that come with equipment. Obviously, if we take the Apple TV remote away, which we will talk about in a minute, and set it in a drawer somewhere and don't ever use it, and we use our Control 4 or Crestron remotes or universal remotes, those remotes aren't going to communicate, and they're not going to have Siri built into them where we can do these different types of actions. Mm-hmm. But I think this is going to be more popular than integrators that I've talked to and have seen are giving it credit for. And the real reason that I think it's going to take off is simply because of search. And if you've ever had to painfully type anything into an Apple TV, I'm gritting my teeth right now as I say this. I can hear that.
That is the most frustrating operation on the face of the planet. And I think that as soon as people go from typing in things with their lousy remote interface to just saying, hey, find me a Modern Family episode with Edward Norton. I mean, all right, whatever. That's a bad example. But
yeah.
I think that is going to really be the interface that people use. Unfortunately, for us as integrators, we're going to have to figure out how to work around that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can see your point there, and I'll concede that one for sure. Like, I could see that specific, it's a pointed use case. It saves me time from manually, typing in a bunch of characters, and particularly with how painful that experience has been on prior generations of Apple TV. I could see myself highlighting the search bar and then, saying House of Cards and having it just pop right up. That would be cool. I just don't see it as being like a primary means of control, which I feel like is what it's being touted as. Play, pause, skip ahead 7 minutes. So rewind that. What did she just say? Like all that sort of thing.
What did she just say was a really killer feature, I thought. I say that all the time. And what it does is it kicks you back 30 seconds or 15 seconds.
And then it turns the captioning on.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
That was kind of clever.
Yeah. So that's something integrators, I mean, if that's a command that we can get I'm just thinking as an integrator, give me an IR command for what did she just say? Would that would be awesome, right? But I don't think we're going to get that.
Yeah. So, there are points at which voice control I think does make sense. And I think I've been, I've said that all along. I feel like it gets too much attention and too much energy put into it when maybe I feel like there are other ways that we could get a little more creative. One thing that I do want to touch on before I forget is that the universal search, and this is actually, as I understand it, kind of an old feature when it comes to Roku, for instance,
and
where
TiVo.
where you just type in the genre, I guess, or title that you're looking for. It'll go out and it'll look at Netflix and it'll look at Hulu and it'll look at whatever other services you're using, and it'll pull all those results into one area. And this is something that Apple TV's been missing, and they have it now. I was a little curious because I haven't dug into this, but I only heard universal search specifically mentioned in the context of voice control. And I can't imagine that's actually the only place that you can get it, right? I mean, do you know, like universal search, I would have to imagine even if you're not using voice control is still an option, but I'm not sure. I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question. It seems like that's one of those things that that could be the case, but we'll have to wait and see. Like I don't know why they wouldn't allow you to just search for Modern Family and then have all the places you can possibly get an episode of Modern Family pop up. That's the way it works on Roku. That's the way it works on TiVo. I mean, heck, TiVo will pick up your video on demand services and say, oh, it's available over there too. Let's go watch it there. So yeah, I can't imagine why it wouldn't work that way.
And that's really, to me, the way that it should work. And there was a lot of talk during this presentation about how, apps are the future of TV. And I certainly understand, I think, what they're getting at when they say that.
Yeah, well, I got something to say about that.
Good. I can't wait to hear it. I'm going to give my thought real quick. And it's just like, my thought was like, well, kind of like, in my opinion, the future of TV doesn't look like, okay, I'm done watching this show in Netflix. Now I have to exit out and go over to Hulu to watch that show. And then I got to exit out to watch live TV here. To me, the future of TV looks a little bit more integrated than that. And let's figure out a way to pull these things into a common interface and just let me watch what I want to watch and make suggestions, use algorithms to understand what my tastes are. And on certain times of day, I typically watch this thing. And on certain days of the week, I watch football or whatever it is. And I think bringing that into an experience where I have to think a little bit less about, what I want to watch and moving through different apps and all of this sort of, decision making. I think a lot of us, and I was reading an article about this, just like we come home from work and we don't want to make decisions anymore. Like a lot of us just want to kind of turn on the TV and just pick a channel and kind of have something on, and then we go about our business and it's sort of background noise or whatever. And I think there's value in that. I really, when I think about the way I watch TV, a lot of times that's what it is. I don't spend a lot of time sitting and watching TV. I certainly do have certain shows that I like to watch, but in general, just like right now, I got a football game on. It's just
I was about to say, it's always football. I don't really know what you're doing.
So anyways, I want to hear your thoughts on that, but that was my thought when they said, the future of TV is apps. And I was thinking, kind of, but it's sort of a subtle point that I'm making, I guess, but I kind of, those are my thoughts on it anyways. Yeah,
no, it's a great point. I wasn't even really thinking of that when I was making my comment, but I think you would be a good candidate for TiVo one of these days.
Yeah.
Because all the stuff you described is something that TiVo does for you. It does make suggestions on what you should watch. It does give you kind of a summary of, all the movies that are on. You just go pick one and just have it on in the background if you wanted. So yeah, I think that there are companies out there trying to do that. And maybe that's something that they certainly could do that, right? They have all the infrastructure here to do it, but having those algorithms and everything, they'll have to work in maybe later on, and it'll be part of an update. But my comment was going to be more of the quality of the apps that are out there right now and how poorly they work, even from major like TV companies like USA or AMC or whoever has a streaming app experience. Like they've been really bad, and they're kind of like the gold standards, which I think everybody points to the MLB app as like the gold standard. And even Apple brought that up, and they were showing off the new MLB app. Like that team that makes that baseball app is like the best in the world. They have been working nonstop on this.
Yeah.
And they actually, I think they were actually the team that kind of helped HBO get started, like with their streaming. Mm-hmm. So HBO is another really good app for streaming content. But holy cow, the other ones are just horrible. Like USA, I've tried to watch a couple things on that. It was horrible. I I don't really think that today's iteration of like, what are you going to get if you get a USA app and it just kind of like starts streaming and then like kicks you to a commercial and then starts streaming from the very beginning again. Like,
yeah. I mean, it quickly, you just get turned off right away.
Right. This stuff has to be flawless. Like, we're used to watching TV and, in real time.
Yeah.
And it's like, barring a power outage or that, something major catastrophe, like, you're going to watch a show from beginning to end without issue. And I think the streaming services and the streaming apps in particular are missing that particular feature right now. So I'm totally welcome. I'm welcome to seeing the future TV being apps, but they better be good apps.
Yeah. Well, and that was my one other thought on that, was like they showed screenshots from new apps for the new Apple TV from, I think it was Netflix, Hulu, and HBO, and then I think you mentioned the MLB one. And my initial thought was those all look pretty different from one another, at least from the single screenshots that they showed. And I was thinking about people like my parents or clients who aren't super technically savvy. They've been able to pick up the Apple TV, I think, pretty easily, because whether you go into Netflix or whether you go into Hulu, the interface looks pretty much the same. There are some subtle differences on the old Apple TV, but by and large, you've got a very similar menu structure, and things are laid out pretty similar. And if people are just going to go in and every app now is going to have a very unique user interface, and they're going to do things the way that they think they should be done, I think that's great. I think we'll see some innovation come from that. We'll probably see some beautiful apps be developed for the Apple TV. But there's also a trade-off there. If every app you go into, if Netflix is completely different to navigate from Hulu, is completely different from HBO, for people like you and me and probably most of our listeners, won't be an issue. For less technically savvy users who are going to have to learn how to navigate through all those different apps, I think it's a trade-off, and it's something to be considered.
Yeah, Apple did release, along with basically what you would consider templates for what you're talking about. So they did release that, but they also released design guidelines, which they do with pretty much all of their products, and tell you how they want to see things done. Now, as you can tell by looking at the App Store, that's not always followed and not always updated, like from version to version. So, app guidelines that were around in the very first iOS, 3 or whatever it was when the App Store came around, like the design guidelines are completely different now, because the interface and products have changed. So if the developer never updated their app for those new design guidelines or new navigation paradigms, that's what happens when you get stuck with one of those old apps that looks really old, like it was made for iOS 5.
Yeah.
It's one of those things. You're all right. It is jarring to kind of like, even on the phone, just open up an app that's old and it doesn't fit the mold and fit the way you're thinking now that you have this newer device and newer OS running. So
yeah,
I'm totally with you there.
Yeah, well, I think we can kind of start to wrap up, but we have not touched on the remote, which I know we wanted to hit on, and then also, real quick, the gaming. Seth, do you have anything? Like, for me, I'm not much of a gamer. I went through a phase a few years ago where I got into doing some stuff on the PS3, and that was fun for a little while. But generally, I'm not a big gamer. It's not really something that I've gotten into, and I don't get excited about it. I have, I think, maybe 1 or 2 games on my iPhone that I probably have played like twice and never again. And so gaming's just not my thing. I'm curious if you're into it and if you have any thoughts on it.
You are pretty much exactly the same way I treat gaming. My problem with gaming is if I start playing, I just kind of get absorbed into it. And then I wake up like 3 hours later going, wait, what just have
a proposal to write?
Yeah. Or wasn't I supposed to take my wife out to dinner tonight? So, and my wife is actually the gamer in this household. So we have some like really old vintage, like Sega and Dreamcast and like these really old consoles in the house. And she loves playing those things, but I can't sit through like 2 or 3 games and I'm like, I'm just antsy.
Yeah,
I need to do something different.
I just lose interest.
Yeah. So I'm with you on that. I mean, the gaming platform looks very interesting. It's a huge market for Apple. Like if you go to the App Store, everything is a freaking game. And I wish I could find real productivity apps, but I can't because everything they want to be a game in there. So obviously people are making money by making games for Apple platforms. And I think they're just like, hey, we got to get this on the TV. Let's figure out a way to do that. Yeah. So it's going to be a huge market. It's entertainment. It's built right into it. And for $149, I mean, that's a pretty good price. You'll probably have to buy a controller or two. Yeah. But yeah, for that's a pretty good price.
Yep. And obviously makes perfect sense for Apple to move into that from a business perspective, but not something that I have a lot of thoughts about. So we don't need to, spend any more time on that. Let's talk about the remote. I think, Seth, I'll let you jump in here. I know you had a few thoughts you wanted to share on the remote.
God, it's so ugly. I can't even look at it. No, I mean, all right. So it is actually a pretty remote. It kind of falls in line with the other one that they did, where it was just the little silver thing that gets lost in the seat cushions of your couch and you never find again. This one looks to be a little bit bigger, and it has a touchpad kind of thing at the top where you can swipe around and move the interface around for you. It also has accelerometers, and it's kind of like a Wii. One of those Wii stick things where you can like swing it at the TV if you're playing a video game, and it that swings a baseball bat. So that I thought was kind of interesting. It's got a bunch of sensors into it, but looking at it from like a remote standpoint, like what should be a remote. It's not a good remote. I mean, the buttons are all circular. It would be kind of hard to kind of like find which button does what. I mean, there's actually two versions of this remote. There's one that's going to ship to the countries that don't have the Siri search in them. And there's the Siri remote that will ship to the countries that do have the Siri search.
Interesting.
So internationally, you will see two different remotes. Not such a big deal for most of the people listening to this podcast, but just kind of one of those small tech notes to make note of. But I don't get the way it's laid out. Like, this is going to be held in a human hand. We have probably decades of millennia of research on like what fits into a human hand properly. And this little piece of industrial design is not a great example of that. So I'm glad to see hard buttons that you can feel around and probably try and figure out eventually what they are. But I just don't think it's that great of a remote right now.
Yeah. It's got the whatever they're calling it at the top. I can't even remember, glass, I guess, where you can swipe instead of, the directional buttons, which I guess it makes sense. But I personally didn't mind having the directional buttons. Again, it to me comes down to that tactile feel where I don't have to look down at the remote. Now I understand obviously swiping doesn't involve you looking down. My question with swiping to navigate is kind of the accuracy of it. Am I going to be fumbling around because all I wanted to do was move the cursor over, one title to the right and it jumped over 5 or something like that. But, they did specifically mention that in the presentation that they, gave it the sensitivity needed to, accurately represent what the user's trying to do. So they've definitely given it some thought, and I'm pretty confident Apple will probably get that part right. Probably the most interesting thing that I saw on the remote was the addition of volume buttons, and that jumped out to me right away. And I kind of did a double take. It was like, wait, what is that? A volume button?
I did a double take, and then I did a triple take when I realized there's no mute button.
And no mute button. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So interesting that I think the thought there, and he also mentioned in the presentation that it'll control the power of your TV set. And I think he said AV receiver as well. I'm wondering how far down that rabbit hole they're going to go. Like, can you set up a macro? Like, I kind of doubt it.
No. That's straight up CEC. So they're using the HDMI CEC thing to control everything in the chain. So basically the source, when you turn it on, will supposedly send a command through your receiver to tell your receiver to turn on, and then supposedly that's going to send a command to the TV to turn on. And I think you and I know as custom integrators, like, step 1 is you turn off Auto Motion Plus. Step 2, you go and turn off all the smart features and CEC control for HDMI. So that's not going to work reliably, and they're going to feel some pain on that one. I can tell you right now.
I have a feeling they are. Yeah, you're right. They did say that it's all CEC. I had forgotten about that, but like you said, I mean, CEC does not have a good track record. I think that it might work if you've got the Apple TV hooked into a newer flat panel and that's like your whole signal chain, right? But as soon as you start to introduce switching and AV receivers, I think you're going to go off the rails pretty quick. And I don't know. I'll be curious. Apple, unfortunately, they probably won't be the ones receiving, the bulk of the support calls. It'll be guys like you and me who actually have to go out and support this stuff and install it. And so these are always the things that I'm thinking about when I see these new products come online. My understanding, we were actually talking about this before. You still can control the new one with IR. The remote is Bluetooth and it'll communicate with the Apple TV via Bluetooth. But my understanding is if you want to tie this into say a Logitech remote and just use simple IR, which is, about as bulletproof as it gets in terms of controlling consumer AV devices, then I understand that you do still have the option to do that.
Yeah, it looks like I'm looking at the tech specs page, and not only does the remote have an IR transmitter, but the little base station, the Apple TV itself, has an IR receiver. As I think it's really good that they are including RF. So they're using Bluetooth 4.0. So watch out. There's something that's a sleeper technology. That's one of those things that can do mesh networking. People, wake up. And so they're using that for their RF, which is great. So people will understand that, that they can hide the Apple TV away and they don't have to see it. And then, Control 4 systems have been able to do, and some other systems, I can't remember right off the top of my head, have been able to do IP control. So I'm assuming that that's still going to remain the same. And we've had really good luck with that. It does this little pairing process, and you can control it with IP. So hopefully that'll work the same way.
Yeah, IP control can be one of those things, double-edged sword, in my opinion, in my experience. You do get a lot of, I guess I should say, when it works, it's super snappy. You get two-way feed. You potentially can get two-way feedback. I don't know if the Apple TV does that, but there are. I guess what I'm trying to say is certainly benefits to doing IP control, but when it comes to something that's just bulletproof. As much as I hate to say it, like slapping a little IR emitter on the front of a consumer AV device is still probably the most reliable way to go. And typically your client calls with a problem and it's like, walk to the front of the Apple TV and see the little thing that's dangling off of there, just stick it back on the front and problem solved. And, that's about as complicated as your troubleshooting typically gets. But I know eventually that's going to go away and we're going to have to embrace a little bit more probably sophisticated means of control. Although I don't know how soon that's going to be. I think IR is going to be around for a while. But in any event, when they said that it was a Bluetooth remote, that was one of the first things that jumped to my mind.
Yeah, well, keep in mind for integration on this thing, unlike the $69 Apple TVs, which will still be around, this one does not have a optical Toslink output. So keep that in mind when you're integrating these into your system.
Yes, good call.
If you need audio out of this thing, you're going to need some kind of HDMI. What do they call them? Audio decoupler things. Mm-hmm. Another little thing to dongle off the back of this.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and stick in the rack somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. It's not going to be fun, but that's there. 1080p doesn't do 4K, which the new phones record in 4K. But the Apple TV can't play those videos back.
Yeah, that was an interesting omission.
Yeah, and also note it does not play MKV, which is a video container format. It will do M4V and MP4 and MOV file formats, but MKV is noticeably missing from that, which a lot of people who have large media libraries like to store their files in that format. I really don't know too much about it, but I know that people were kind of pointing out that was missing.
Gotcha. All right, Seth. Well, we're kind of running up against our time here. Did you have anything else about the Apple event that you wanted to share?
No, I'm excited to see these products. I'm really excited to see an Apple TV that developers can get their hands on because I think that's going to be. This is the early days of it. Just like the Apple Watch, this is a strange device with its new territory. Developers are going to be excited to get their hands on it, and then over time, features will be added in, and Apple will change maybe the direction of what it wanted to do with it. Who knows? But I think it's exciting to see finally these devices hit the stores, and I think it's later this year, just in time for Christmas to go on sale.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
it's weird how they do that.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing I thought was exciting during the event had nothing to do with Apple, but actually had to do with the hub, with our Slack channel, and we had just tremendous interaction on that channel during the Apple event, and you did a great job of kind of manning it. I was out. I wasn't able to watch the event. I was out kind of running around on sales calls and stuff. So it was great for me to be able to kind of listen in on the dialogue and get a feel for what was going on at the Apple event, sort of secondhand. And I thought that people seemed to enjoy being in that room and offering their insights on what was going on. And I thought it was a great use of that chat room, and certainly excited about events in the future. I thought it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I definitely want to give a shout out to everybody who showed up and contributed, made jokes, and had fun in the hub. There was a lot of fun for me, just to kind of have, we could throw a question out there and somebody would try and answer it, or somebody would have a question and I'd try and go look and answer it, and then we talk about what people are saying in real time. So it was a lot of fun, and I do want to thank everybody who showed up for that, because it was definitely a lot of messages going on there. And if you do join back into the Slack channel, if you missed it, all that history's there. You can kind of scroll up and see what went on. Yeah,
and searchable too, as I understand it, which is kind of a cool feature.
A little bit, yeah.
Of Slack. So you could, hey, what did Seth say about that thing? You could use the search feature to kind of go back and find stuff. But that's a little bit of a kind of, I guess, icing on the cake, right? The main thing is the interaction, and I thought it was great. I really had a good time kind of sitting in on that and chiming in when and where I could. For anybody who's listening who's not familiar with the Slack channel, or who wants to get involved in it, the way to do that would be to become a patron of the show. You can do that for as little as $1 a month, and there's more information about that. Easiest way is probably on our website, which is HomeTech.fm/support, and that'll give you the information you need there. And basically, if you become a patron of the show, you can do that for as little as $1 a month. Then you'll get an email invite from Seth there that'll kind of explain more about the room and how you can get involved.
Yep, absolutely. We totally appreciate everybody who has helped support the show, and we are roughly $30 away from putting together a live show because of that.
Yeah, very exciting.
Yeah, if we see that happen, holy cow! We're gonna have a live show, man.
Yeah,
it should be fun.
a little frightening.
Yeah. I think we got the details worked out. It's just the matter of pulling the trigger on that one.
Yeah,
it's gonna be rough. So yeah, no, it should be a lot of fun.
All right. Well, want to thank everybody for listening. Quick reminder, we are part of the Technology.fm family. There's a lot of great podcasts that are curated there by Mike Wolf of the Smart Home Show. Does a great job with that site, and that can be found at Technology.fm. We'd encourage you to go check that out. If you're interested in reaching out to us with any sort of comments, suggestions, or feedback, you can do that on our website at HomeTech.fm/feedback. We're also on Twitter. We're at HomeTech Podcast, and we read all those tweets, all those messages. We would definitely love to hear from you. If you have anything you want to reach out to us with, please don't hesitate.
Yep. Well, man, I guess it's time to go watch some football.
You got it.
All right.
Got it. Thanks, Seth. Have a good week, and we'll talk to you next week.
You too. Have a good one.
All right. Take care.